I lost my beloved sister-in-law. Still in disbelief, I attended her funeral, where my brother said something shocking during his eulogy.
The home and assets my wife and I plan to share will now be used for my next wife and family. I'm sure my late wife would want that.
Confused, I realized something was off. The next moment, I ran out of the funeral, still in my mourning attire. 30 minutes later, I found something unbelievable at my parents' home. My name is Tina. I'm 30 and single. I work as an illustrator. I live alone, but it's the house I grew up in. Both of my parents passed away when I was young. The only family I have is my brother Timothy, who lives alone in the next town over. He's the only person I can call family now, but we've never really gotten along.
You're so stupid and awkward. It's embarrassing to be seen with you. Don't talk to me in public.
Timothy has always been smart and savvy. He used to bully me, who had no particular talent other than drawing. Now he works for a big corporation and makes a high salary. He mocks me every time we meet.
Why are you still trying to be an illustrator with no talent? Why don't you just give up and get married? Oh, but you've never had a boyfriend, so that might be hard for you, ha ha ha.
I've heard this kind of thing from him all the time. Today, I was dreading meeting Timothy again.
Hey, Tina, I'm coming in.
Oh, great. What's he going to say this time? I heard Timothy's voice from the front door. Today, he was coming to announce his engagement. I wondered what kind of person would marry cold-blooded Timothy. Honestly, I was terrified of this engagement announcement. His fiancée must be a woman with high pride. I was sure they would both mock me for being inexperienced in relationships, even at 30. I had thought about this over and over. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Jeannie. The woman who greeted me at the entrance was modest-looking, but had a gentle demeanor. Not what I expected, but I can't let my guard down. You're Tina, right? As I hesitated to respond, Jeannie spoke. Sorry, please come in. Thank you. We hugged lightly and Jeannie entered the house. Her every move was graceful, and she wasn't snobbish at all.
This is Jeannie. She's an elementary school teacher. Her family owns that famous bakery nearby. You know it, right?
Of course, it's a well-known place. I was amazed. She's a real lady, but her kindness seemed innate, not just a result of good upbringing. Just talking to her felt like a cleansing experience. Even Timothy, who used to be so cold, seemed softer next to Jeannie, and he was much nicer to me than before. How did you manage to win the heart of such a wonderful woman? I genuinely thought so, no flattery intended. As Timothy stayed silent, perhaps feeling shy, Jeannie spoke up. We met through a friend's introduction. I was the one who took an interest in him first. He looks like an actor I find handsome. Jeannie spoke cheerfully, but observing the two, I felt it might be the other way around. I could imagine Timothy being the one who aggressively pursued Jeannie, captivated by her aura.
So, my current apartment is too small for us to live in after we get married. We're thinking of moving in here. The kitchen is fully equipped, and we can start our life together right away. This place is too big for you to live alone anyway.
What? Don't just decide that on your own, I thought. But I felt like I could get along with my future sister-in-law, and Timothy seemed softer too. Plus, I had been a bit scared living alone in such a big house. Tina, I'm sorry for springing this on you. If you're not comfortable with it, please feel free to say no. Jeannie said, considerate as always. No, it's fine. I'm happy to have more family. Thank you. Before I knew it, I had agreed. Jeannie, Timothy, I've drafted the welcome board. What do you think? Wow, Tina, you're so talented. It looks amazing.
You're really good at this. No wonder you're a pro.
I was working on a welcome board for Timothy and Jeannie's wedding, scheduled for 4 months later. A few months into our cohabitation, which had started at Timothy's strong insistence, they were already legally married. I had been anxious about living together so suddenly, but Jeannie was genuinely kind and treated me as an important family member. We became close like real sisters in no time. I couldn't be more grateful, truly. Then one day, while I was working on illustrations in my first floor studio, I heard a scream and a loud noise from the staircase. What was that noise? Jeannie, are you okay?
Jeannie! Hey, Jeannie!
I rushed to the stairs and found Jeannie collapsed at the bottom, clutching her leg and groaning.
Tina, call an ambulance, quick! Jeannie, hang in there. If something happens to you,
Tears streamed down Timothy's face. It was the first time I'd ever seen him cry. Even Timothy has a human side, I thought as I called for an ambulance.
The bone is fractured. She'll be in a cast for about a month, but she should be able to leave the hospital in a week or so.
The doctor explained as we stood beside Jeannie's bed. Thank God it's not serious, but what happened? Why did you suddenly fall down the stairs? I guess I wasn't thinking.
Alright, I have to prepare for work tomorrow, so I'm going home. I'll visit again.
With that, Timothy left. Timothy was crying when he saw you fall, wasn't he? Yeah, he was sobbing all the way in the ambulance. It was actually embarrassing, Jeannie said, laughing shyly. We looked at each other and laughed. In hindsight, I should have paid more attention to the slight unease I felt at that moment. I can't regret it enough. A week later, Jeannie was discharged from the hospital. Welcome home. Don't worry about chores. I'll handle everything for a while. Thank you. Just then, I noticed a shadow cross Jeannie's face. Is something wrong? I asked. Snapping back to herself, Jeannie hurriedly put on her usual gentle smile and said, It's nothing. Today, I prepared a dinner focused on Jeannie's favorite dishes to celebrate her discharge from the hospital. I was looking forward to living cheerfully with Jeannie again. Despite everything, I was steadily working on the welcome board for Timothy and Jeannie's wedding. One evening, my cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. I thought about ignoring it, but it kept ringing persistently, so I nervously answered. The call was from the police. They asked if I was related to Jeannie, and I said she was Timothy's wife. My heart was unsettled, wondering what this call was about. The officer continued, informing me that Jeannie had been identified as the victim of a fatal traffic accident. My vision went dark, and I collapsed to the ground, gripping my phone tightly. Why? How could this happen to Jeannie?
She was using crutches and couldn't get out of the way in time when she fell on the road. It's unfortunate,
the officer said slowly. Seeing Jeannie's lifeless body in the hospital's cold storage room, I felt devastated. I should have given her a ride. Jeannie, why did this happen?
Jeannie, this can't be real.
Timothy was also completely worn out. Having seen their loving relationship, it felt like my heart was tearing apart. Though it was hard to process the sudden loss, the funeral couldn't be postponed and proceeded solemnly under the funeral home's guidance. Of course, Timothy was the one who managed the ceremony. His tear-filled eyes during the speech were hard to watch.
She was a kind and cheerful wife. We hadn't even had our wedding yet, and I regret not seeing her in her bridal gown. We had planned to build a house near her parents' home, and we had even prepared the land. I'll use that land and her assets for a new family in the future. I'm sure that's what she would have wanted.
What? The latter part of his speech caught my attention. What does he mean? I remembered a conversation I had with Jeannie while she was in the hospital. Timothy was really upset when you got hurt, Jeannie. It was the first time I'd seen him cry. I wonder what he'd do if I died. He'd probably cry a river, maybe even follow you. I'd rather he didn't, but I might not like it if he found a new wife. Am I too possessive? When Timothy came to visit, Jeannie shared our conversation with him.
You're the only wife for me. If you go before me, I'll remain single for the rest of my life.
he said, looking deeply into Jeannie's eyes. I felt embarrassed just watching his sincerity. They were such a loving couple. I felt enveloped in warmth. And yet he said that. Come to think of it, Timothy had been acting strangely before and after Jeannie's hospitalization. Sometimes he'd look at her warmly, but occasionally his eyes would turn cold, like they used to be. When Jeannie asked him about his late nights,
"I've been assigned a new project at work. I should be able to come home earlier soon."
I felt uneasy about the change in his expression. I also remembered overhearing a conversation between Timothy and Jeannie about building a new house.
"Make sure the land is in both our names. It's a shared property since we're living together."
But the land belongs to my parents, and the tax advisor said it would be cheaper to keep it in my name.
"Who cares about a small amount of gift tax? It's natural to have it in both our names, right?"
Timothy's face, while convincing her, looked a lot like when he used to look down on me, and it gave me chills. Could it be? A thought crossed my mind, and I left the funeral, heading to my parents' home. It took about 30 minutes from the funeral venue to my parents' home. Not wanting to waste time hailing a taxi, I ran in my morning clothes, recalling my conversations with Jeannie. Just 2 or 3 days ago, "Hey, Tina, this is a big if, okay? Just a hypothetical." Jeannie, who usually never lost her gentle smile, looked unusually somber. "If something happens to me, I want you to look for a box I've hidden under the bed." Under the bed, under the bed, under the bed. I kept repeating it to myself as I ran. When I reached my parents' home, I dashed up the stairs. Since there were extra rooms, Timothy and Jeannie each had their own. Jeannie and I had shared many conversations in this room. Feeling overwhelmed by recent memories, I searched under Jeannie's bed. I found it. A shoebox with something inside. The contents were a few photos and a small device. The photo showed Timothy walking side by side with a flashy woman. One even captured them entering a hotel. Clearly, these were photos of Timothy cheating. With trembling hands, I pressed what looked like the play button on the small device. A voice that sounded like Timothy's came through. It seemed to be a voice recorder.
"So, I've made sure all the assets will be mine. Divorce would be messy if things got complicated. The most reliable way to get the money is to have her gone."
"You're such a bad man, thinking such terrible things as a newlywed."
"Being bad feels more like me. I approached her for her assets, but she threw me off balance. I'm more comfortable with a woman like you."
The shrill voice of the woman he was cheating with mixed with Timothy's chuckling. It sounded like they were in a car. I could faintly hear the engine running. I felt a chill to my core. Jeannie's gentle smile and our shared memories flooded back, and I couldn't stop the tears. Why did Jeannie have to go through this? Wiping away my tears, I took out my cell phone. "Hello? Is this the police?" When I returned to the funeral venue, I saw Timothy being led out, flanked by 2 burly men. Probably detectives. Our eyes met, and Timothy sneered.
"You're behind this, aren't you? You're stupid but have good instincts."
It had been a while since Timothy insulted me. He was always like this. The Timothy who was with Jeannie seemed like a different person. "Tell me one thing. Did you marry Jeannie just for her assets?" Timothy suddenly stopped. I waited, but no words came from him. He was escorted into a car. Further police investigation seized other evidence. Notes outlining his plans were found in Timothy's diary, and it was revealed that a large life insurance policy had recently been taken out on Jeannie. Of course, Timothy was the beneficiary. It also came to light that Jeannie had been prescribed sleeping pills for insomnia, which she started taking around the time they were discussing land for their new home and taking out life insurance. Though there was no direct evidence of Timothy's involvement, the clear premeditation led to his arrest. The police concluded that Jeannie, unsettled by Timothy's actions, likely stumbled due to the side effects of her sleeping pills and fell down the stairs. If not for that fall, she probably wouldn't have been in the traffic accident. I regretted not being able to do anything that day. 6 months later, I was praying in front of Jeannie's grave. Many letters from Jeannie's former students adorned her tombstone. Jeannie, I'm going to France. My mentor from art school recommended me, so I'll be working as an illustrator there. I wanted to change my environment, tired of living in the house filled with memories of Jeannie and thinking about Timothy, who would likely be released soon for a lesser charge. I'm taking the part of the welcome board that I drew of Jeannie, even though we never got to use it. Timothy was released soon after, but of course, he lost his job and didn't get a dime of Jeannie's assets. I had no intention of ever dealing with him again. According to rumors, Timothy was sued in civil court by Jeannie's parents and faced a hefty demand for damages. Naturally, he couldn't pay, and he had no relatives willing to help him out. I expected Timothy to go into hiding, but unsurprisingly, a few $100s were being deposited into Jeannie's account every month. Apparently, he was scraping by with day labor. While this doesn't absolve him, I hope Timothy spends a lifetime making amends for what he did to Jeannie. I can't fathom why sweet Jeannie had to be betrayed and die, but I feel that continually pondering this serves as a tribute to her memory. In France, I threw myself into my work to forget the sorrow. My efforts were recognized, and I was given the opportunity to hold a modest solo exhibition. I also displayed the part of the welcome board featuring Jeannie.
Did you paint this? It's a wonderful piece. It's filled with kindness and love. I'm moved.
At the exhibition, a foreign man approached me. Thank you. I painted someone very dear to me in this piece, so I'm glad to hear you say that. Perhaps sensing the depth behind my words, the man said,
Would you mind sharing the story behind it?
That conversation was the beginning. The man and I started dating and recently got married. In our new home, we've hung the painting of Jeannie that started it all. I bet Jeannie brought us together, I said to the painting. And for a moment, it felt like the Jeannie in the painting smiled back at me.